Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Merry Christmas season, everybody. College football kind of in a holding pattern right now until the playoffs. Army-Navy game today. It is week 14 in the NFL. Steve Kallas, you are here. It is time for another episode of Kallas Remarks with my man right over there. What's up, Steven? How you doing, my friend?
All good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
You too as well. Well, that game on Monday night, it was billed to be like one of the games of the year. It was a game. Had some weather issues. Matt Jones threw the ball 3 times. They rushed for 229 yards against the Bills, and they covered and they won the game, and that's 7 in a row, I believe. And your overall thoughts about that game. Can we put a barometer on that game, because it did kind of inhibit some of the passing, and Allen can certainly sling it better than Mac Jones. So, but he wasn't really able to. Although they were 1 for 4 in the red zone, where the Bills missed a field goal late, which would have given them an opportunity to make a field goal instead of go for it when they had that final opportunity. What were your thoughts?
I think it's just the kind of game that the Patriots win, and they've been winning for, since Belichick got there. Just an incredible game plan. First 10 plays apparently they were done before the game. It was 10 runs. And, they went 64 yards up the middle, untouched for a touchdown. I mean, it was just Harris literally untouched. And they went for 2 because of the wind. They were against the wind. And they made it. But then, one of the dumbest plays ever. And my son was going nuts because before the punt was kicked, they sent back 2 guys. The one guy is the all-pro guy, number 80, Olszewski, I think his name is. And they put back N'Keal Harris, and my son, N'Keal Harry, I'm sorry. And my son said, Daddy, he hasn't been back on a punt once all year. And sure enough, it's like the bad baseball field where wherever you put him, the ball finds you. The guy, it did hit his helmet and change directions. He should have never touched it. In fact, I thought it was interesting. Maybe you shouldn't have even put a guy back there because it was so dangerous. But that kept Buffalo in the game. 8-0, 8-7, 11-7. I said, if it's 11-0 at the half in this win, the game's over. But they did kick a field goal, and you're right. Buffalo missed a 33-yarder. That was into the wind, not to defend the guy, but it was into the wind. And if you saw them show the the field goals in warmups, Joe, they took the big right-hand hook, like incredible. And that's how you had to kick it towards the left upright, I think, to get it to go through the uprights. And their kicker kicked it through the right upright, and he missed badly once the wind took over. It's very interesting after the game. Because they asked Belichick, there was a similar game back in 2008. And this is how crazy it is to me that Belichick may have the advantage over Sean McDermott and these younger coaches, because he played in the game in Buffalo in 2008. And he said that game was much worse than Monday night. And they had ESPN, God bless them, they had video of that game. And that's the game where the goalposts got tilted. And they had to literally, during the game, fix the goalpost to be upright. And he said, no, that game was much worse. So to me, even though it's Buffalo, even though you have a great coaching staff, maybe they even watched the film, but Belichick was there coaching the game. And I just think that's the kind of advantage. To me, you don't say that with the Bucs and Arians. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. But that's the kind of thing that just leads them on to victory. But you're right. If they make that first field goal, they have again, against the window. Mm-hmm. I'll give the Patriots credit because they had the win in the second and fourth quarter, and you can argue that was the deciding factor. But yeah, 2 for 3, Mac Jones close to his 70% completion rate. The first catch was a great catch. Maybe they stopped because the first catch was like it was like a 7-yard pass that almost went over Smith's head. He made a great one-handed catch, but they only did go 2 for 3. But hey, Buffalo put 8 even 9 in the box and couldn't stop the run. And I don't know if you saw the post game, they asked Poyer and another defender, I forget who the other guy was. One Buffalo writer said, so were you embarrassed by the fact that they could run on you like that? And boy, they took great offense. Talk about sore losers, talk about not taking the high road. One guy said, what are you talking about? We gave up 14 points. They're a great team. They had one real good run. Other than that, What did they really do? And the other guy was like, we'll remember you asked that question. What are you doing asking that kind of question? And
I
I'm
saw
sitting there
that, yeah.
going, that's a pretty good question, though. You don't
Yeah, it
like
was
hearing it
fine.
because you lost, and you could have won 16-14 if they had made that 33-yarder. But it was really interesting. And you don't want to be the Bills because you get the Bucs now, and then you get the Patriots. I don't know if it's the following week, but you get the Patriots soon thereafter. I think it's 2 weeks later in New England. I know they're going to say New England hasn't been New England in New England, but I don't think it has an effect on the next game, except I think this Belichick finds a way. But this was more of a Belichick game, I think, than the next one will be. It'll be cold in New England. It'll be mid to late December, blah, 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 blah. But the Patriots will be favored. And if they can do that, then Buffalo, they might lose to the Bucs. I think they will. They might be 7-7 in a couple of games. So they got some work to do. Obviously, if they beat the Patriots, they'll be in the mix, I think, for the AFC East. But if they lose to the Bucs and beat the Patriots will be a game ahead. So we'll have to see what happens. The Patriots had a very tough schedule, for these 4 games, 2 with the Bills, 1 with the Colts. I forget who the 4th game is, but it's against somebody good. And then or maybe not. Maybe they now have 3 left and they have 2 gimmies at the end, like the Jets and Miami. That could be a tough game because it traditionally was for Brady. I don't know if it'll be for Mac Jones. But yeah, I give the Patriots all the credit in the world, what they've done. They had a 1% chance to make the playoffs after week 6. No, a 1% chance, I think, to make the playoffs. And now it's like off the charts. How are they not going to make the playoffs is the question.
That's go ahead.
I'll just give you one more. They interview Cliff Kingsbury. Now they're 9-2, and they play the Rams at home. I didn't know. Maybe you did. I don't know how we missed this from a picking games perspective. Arizona is 7-0 on the road this year, and they won every game by 10 points or more.
10 or more points. Can you believe that?
Now they're at home, so I don't know. I guess that means they're like 2-2 at home or something, right? They're 9-2, I think, maybe 10-2, whatever.
They're 10-2.
But they have Cliff Kingsbury, who I loved in college, and he's doing a good job. He's got the right quarterback now. And they said, "What do you think of you for Coach of the Year?" And he goes, "Me for Coach of the Year? That's the Bill Belichick Award. They should just give it to him until he retires and then bring it back and start giving out to the rest of the people." But Belichick actually didn't get a lot. I think he's been like a 3-time Coach of the Year. Doesn't get a lot of respect because he had Brady. This year, what he's doing is miraculous. We talked about the early losses. Miami, when Jones let him down the field, and then they had that fumble to lose by 1. They almost beat Tom Brady, another miracle. They almost beat the Cowboys. Those are 3 games they could have won. And I'm saying, look what a coaching job Belichick's doing. But now they've really, as they always do, the arrow goes up for them as the season goes along. And you just got to hope they stay healthy. Because if they stay healthy, my son said, before, I don't know how he thought it up, but he said it could be Bucs Patriots. I said, you're out of your mind. It's Bucs Chiefs. But he claims we did a video somewhere and he picked Bucs Chiefs, but he picked the Patriots to go to the championship. And then when it was 2-4, he goes, "Can I change my pick?" And now he's a genius.
He's unbelievable. I tell you. Well, where are we with the Chiefs? They beat the Broncos. Okay. They're on a streak. I mean, as much criticism as they've gotten, they're 8-4. A lot of teams would like to be 8-4. So in playing horribly, they've still managed to win some of those games. I mean, they got killed by the Titans, but they've been able to eke out a win against the Giants and got them on the roll. My thing is this, and I did a show the other night with Rick and Derek Joseph. We went over all the teams that right now are in the postseason, including the wildcard teams, and the Chiefs are obviously in that mix. And I looked at the NFC versus the AFC. Listen, I'll put my money on the Brady's, the Kyler Murray's, the Aaron Rodgers versus the all I see over in the AFC is Mac Jones, Buffalo's Allen, although they're a tier down. I see Patrick Mahomes and what's his name, the kid from Tennessee who was with the Dolphins. His name is the quarterback that is okay, middle of the road. I'll put my money on the quarterbacks over the NFC, but if they get things right and somehow they got their defense right, because they've been winning on defense, I think they're dangerous, but I don't know if Patrick Mahomes, can he right the ship? His mechanics seem off. It's cute when you're winning, putting up 40 points, you're throwing underhanded behind your back. Everyone makes a big deal of left hand front. But when it doesn't work, and he can't just be on a trajectory like this all the time. I understand that. But this seems to be like an entire year thing. Can he right this ship?
I think so. He's been, not the last game, but the game before, he was really good. But I have to say, to me, they're very lucky, and we talked about it. They played horrific against the Giants. They were terrible. And if they had played, in my opinion, 20 other teams in the NFL, maybe 25 other teams in the NFL, they would have lost. And then they beat the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. What was that, like 13-7, I think the final of that game was. So they were incredibly lucky that Aaron Rodgers went stupid on himself and really hurt his team. Because if they had won that game, they're tied with Kyler Murray, right? They're tied for the first seed. Yes. And so that they were incredibly lucky, those two games. They easily could have lost both of them, and they were 4-4 at the time. But, I think I saw a stat with Mahomes in his last 5 games. If you took out the 5 touchdown game he had, I think in the other 4 games, he had like 3 touchdowns and 4 picks. I don't know the numbers, but his QB rating was abysmal. And he still, to me, hasn't righted the ship offensively. And I think it really comes down to everybody's cutting off their deep balls, which for some reason they didn't do the last few years, Joe? I don't even know. But he's had to become, I won't say a dink and dunk quarterback, but has become a short pass quarterback, and that's not in his realm. I think there's also a little better contain on him in the pocket, although he does get outside. But he hasn't
not much anymore.
He hasn't made those miracle plays like he used to make. When he got outside the pocket and you don't want them to win or don't like them, you're like, oh, not that, anything but that. But not so this year. And I've also seen Kelsey with a few drops, and I don't know, I thought routinely he rarely, if ever, dropped a pass. And so.
Yeah, like things are, yes, exactly right. Like I've seen 3 drops out of him this year. Never seen a drop out of him.
And you're right. They're 8-4. They're going to be in the playoffs, but I don't know. And look, I picked them to go back. I picked a rematch. I just don't know that they can get over the hump on all these other guys. But you're also right. Spags in that defense is much better. Maybe they made Chris Jones happy, and for some reason they had him outside when he's been a dominant inside rusher. And then I want to say 3 or 4 games ago, they moved him inside, and he's a dominant rusher again. I think sometimes a lot of these coaches just outthink themselves. What's the point of putting him on the outside? He might be the best inside defensive lineman in football. And now, of course, he's showing that he got a bunch of sacks the last few weeks. So I don't know if the Chiefs defense, for example, could stop the Bucs, or if you like the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, or even Arizona with Kyler Murray. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to go back and look if they played dominant offenses. Certainly the Packers without Rodgers is not a dominant offense.
No.
Certainly the Giants with whoever's the quarterback is not a dominant offense. Denver is a good defensive team, and I like Teddy Bridgewater, but they are not a dominant offense. So we'll have to see them get tested a little bit. But, there's a lot of good stuff going on. I think you're right, though. I think the Chiefs are right in the mix.
The Cardinals, I want to just chat a little bit about, because you mentioned 7-0 on the road. That's awesome. 10 points or more, that's even more awesome. And once or twice they did it with Colt McCoy. Like, doesn't even have to be, now they got whacked by Carolina in a Colt McCoy game, and Kyler Murray's back and healthy. But of the quarterbacks I mentioned who are in right now the postseason, if it ended today in the NFC, we have Tom Brady, we have Aaron Rodgers, 2 Hall of Famers. Don't know what's going to end up with Kyler Murray, and Dak Prescott. Probably not get to the Hall, but pretty good quarterback. Where do the Cardinals kind of fit in? Are we? See, I know people are hesitant because they haven't won anything since like the 1800s, but is this? I mean, at some point you got to say, hey, this is a pretty good team, right? It's a pretty good ball club.
I think they deserve
Cliff
more.
Kingsbury, they got killed for hiring him. And me and you, well, at least I did. I mean, Kyler Murray looks like a Lilliputian. Like, what? And they got rid of Josh Rosen, which is fine. They didn't want to throw good. I think that's the right thing to do if you like this guy better. They were right. He's aside from Michael Vick, he's the fastest quarterback I've ever seen. He's got hands at this big. I don't know how he throws. He goes like this. The ball goes 70 yards, and he's a winner. I mean, how dangerous can they be?
I think they're very dangerous. I think they're, I looked at the schedule. It's not really tough. You can tell me the Rams coming to Arizona is a game they can lose. But to me, the Rams have been a huge disappointment. And I keep hearing Dan Orlovsky, who I don't always agree with what he says. And when they get OBJ, he went on and said, oh, now it's Super Bowl or bust for the Rams. Well, hold it now. Super Bowl and bust with OBJ. OBJ is a shadow of what he was with the Giants. I saw his numbers with the Browns versus with the Giants. He had about half the receptions, half the yardage, half the touchdowns, and he was unhappy in New York. And now he's unhappy in Cleveland. Will he become unhappy with the Rams? I don't know. Does he have explosiveness coming off that bad injury? I don't know. Can Matthew Stafford win a big regular season game? I don't know. And I think they beat who they beat? Did they manhandle the Bucks maybe?
They beat the Bucks in LA. That was Tampa's first loss this year.
Right. And their incredible defense has been, I would say, really good. But Von Miller had the impact you thought he would have? So they get Von Miller and OBJ a couple of weeks apart. The season's over. They're going to the Super Bowl. And Orlovsky goes, win the Super Bowl or bust. And thank goodness for, I'm trying to think who it was, but they were like, well, hold it now. Tampa Bay returns all 22 of their starters, first time in like forever. And they need to get healthy. But if they get healthy, the Rams, really? That kind of stuff. And now the Rams are going to have to go because they've fallen back. Unless they can win, and I don't like them in this game, but unless they can win, they're going to have 5 losses. They're going to be behind a ton of people. And, and they're in a tough division, so those games are tough, their remaining games. The other team that's got a brutal schedule is the Ravens. I don't know if the Ravens they ain't going to win their division. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. If you look at their schedule, they got like 4 or 5 brutal games coming up. And I still don't know what happened. Harbaugh went for 2. And was slaughtered for doing that.
I don't know why. I thought the play was there. To be honest, I thought
you're right.
Lamar kind of hurried it a little bit, and it needed a few more inches. And
Watt was in his face.
Yes.
But no, you're right. He was open if that's caught, and Andrews is really good. It went off
really good. Yeah.
But Harbaugh had to defend it after the game, and he said they had lost their cornerbacks. But the way I'm thinking, if you're going to be aggressive, and everyone said what an aggressive move that is. Well, if I win the coin flip and I got Lamar Jackson, I'm going to be aggressive. If I score a touchdown, the game is over. Yeah. I just thought watching the game that the Ravens had the advantage over the Steelers. Now, maybe you'll tell me because they had no corners, if Big Ben got the chance, he could lead them down the field. But Big Ben's been, again, he's been better. He's been good, but not great.
Right.
And he had an incredible comeback just the other night with the Vikings. He was down 29-0. He threw the final pass in the end zone, down 8. The guy, I don't even want to say he dropped it. He caught it and took a brutal sandwich hit in the end zone and dropped it. But then they needed the 2-point conversion. They could have won in overtime. Would have been the greatest comeback ever in the regular season. That Frank Reich 35-3 in the playoffs is, I think, still the greatest comeback. And of course, the Patriots had 28-3 against Atlanta in the Super Bowl. So I'm sure that's the greatest Super Bowl comeback. But I think the Steelers are a middle of the road team. It's interesting now, but their tie keeps them in front of the Vikings. They're 6. We always talk about the tie when there is one.
Yeah, Doug Peterson said it. Yeah, we're against the Bengals. Yeah, the tie might get us in.
6-1, and the Vikings are 6-7, so they went ahead of the Vikings. I mean, I know they're in different divisions and in different conferences, but that might work to their advantage. But I think there are a lot more AFC teams with good records. Not great records. The Patriots 9-4, that's a great record because they were 2-4. But I don't know that that's a great record on the overall scheme of things. But they're number 1. The whole AFC is down. So I guess if you're 6-1, you're still in the mix. It's depressing to me, and we've talked about this. I don't want to go into it. You just see all these teams still in the mix. They're 5-7. And maybe you'll tell me that's the extra game, Joe, which it also is. If you have 5-7 and only 4 games left, that's a lot worse than you're 5-7 with 5 games left. You run the table, you're making the playoffs. You go 9-8, you might make the playoffs. In fact, you might have somebody, like that great NFC East last year. 7-9, you make the playoffs. If they lost, the Giants would have been in the playoffs at 6-10. Yay. Give me a break.
Speaking of the NFC East, believe it or not, as bad as they were at the beginning, unwatchable, I think I've said a few times, they're the last team in the playoffs right now, but end of the day, the Philadelphia Eagles. And, oh, by the way, turned the game on, and right away, it was kept a secret, but Gardner Minshew started. It was against the Jets, albeit, but you have to play against two lines up against you, 20 of 25, 3 touchdown passes. You know, I like his style, I like the mullet, the mustache. It's cute. It's a nice little persona thing. He played pretty well. Now, you asked me beforehand, do you think that, you know, they might continue to start him because he played well, and he's a better pocket passer. I think we know that. But I didn't think that the Eagles would be short-sighted and say, let's make the playoffs. But I don't know. I mean, it's possible, but I think coming from on high, like Nick Sirianni might want to start Minshew, but I think they still want to see if Jalen Hurts is their guy, if he's the franchise guy. It's more of an experiment. It's still like an exam, a test. So I think if he's healthy and they have a bye week, he's back. Who would you start next week?
Well,
all things being equal.
You have to tell me what the question is. If I'm Nick Sirianni, I want to win. I want to make the playoffs. And at least I think you would start Minshew until he plays poorly. And he's the kind of guy, again, I think he's a better than average NFL quarterback. I think he's an excellent backup to have on your team.
Oh, I do too, yeah.
Because when he goes in, you can win. Some of these guys, they go in, you know, Mike Lennon on the Giants, or whoever the backup quarterback of the week is for the Jets. Or I just saw that Davis Mills is going to start over Tyrod Taylor for the Texans, with the coach saying Davis Mills gives us the best chance to win. So that's, to me, virtually no chance. But if you have a, dare I say it, Nick Foles in the good old days, but even a Gardner Minshew. So if I'm Nick Sirianni, I want to win my first year, right? I want to win. I want to make the playoffs, and they have a chance. They have a chance. It's almost like their own destiny. All those teams are playing each other. Look, one of the biggest games in the East from an NFC, in the league from an NFC East perspective, is Washington playing the Cowboys. And, you know, Mike McCarthy's already saying, oh, yeah, we're going to win that game and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, just shut up, because you may not win that game. And then he the next day, he walked it back. I want to win every game. I think I'm going to win every game I've ever been in.
Right.
And well, I believe that's not true. That before the game, there's some games you go into and
you're like, yeah,
I'm going to be Brady and the Patriots in New England. I'm not sure, but whatever. So I think it depends. I think that will come from above. That will come from a GM or one of the 5 GMs that the Eagles have or could have, or even the owner. But if I'm Sirianni, first-year coach, I want to win. And if Minshew plays poorly, then I'll pull him. If Minshew gets hurt, then he's out. And I'd ride that for another game at least. But you're right, because they have a bye, Hurts will probably be ready.
he'll probably be ready, yeah.
And that's going to be a tough decision. But he recently had a horrific game. I forget what the numbers
Giants game, 4 picks, horrible.
And how did the Eagles lose to the Giants? I know the Giants aren't terrible, but they're not good.
Four turnovers.
I know the NFC East is better than it was last year. But it's at best better than average, maybe. It might be average conference this year, because the Cowboys have come back to the pack. You know, if Washington beats them twice, and they still have them twice, Washington's in the NFC East lead.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that?
I know.
We love the defense. They were terrible.
They were terrible.
Chase Young, and they're great.
They're great.
We loved Tyler Heineke before anybody else did. Now he's the hottest guy in America.
It's amazing.
That goes back to that playoff game from last year when he played.
Yeah, where I think they lost by 8, which was the closest game the Bucs played, and he was great too. He
outplayed Mahomes. He outplayed all these outplayed Rodgers against them. He outplayed everybody against them. We're like, this guy's unbelievable.
This guy's unbelievable. Well,
he's finally showing something.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, I'm happy for the. I mean, it's been a crazy. Look, Mike White, Cooper Rush, everyone's had their little moments to shine this year, but he's doing okay there. Yeah, the Eagles have them twice, and they have the Giants and Dallas And what's amazing to me is, first of all, I don't think people would be that unhappy if Minshew got the starts, but everyone here in Philly is like, oh, they have an easy schedule. They can run the table. You don't think the Giants and Skins and Cowboys are looking at the Eagles and saying, oh, we got an easy schedule. We got the Eagles. Come on, people. Right. But it's been interesting. I'm glad they're in the mix because it's fun, but it's going to be a crazy finish. So, we shall see. Let's do our picks before we do a little college football. How'd you do last week? What do you got?
I was 3-1 last week.
Wow.
When Thielen got hurt early, my loss was Minnesota. When Thielen got hurt early in the game, I texted you, could I get out of that bet now that Thielen's hurt and Cook wasn't playing? You denied it as usual. And they went on. I was so happy that they lost, though, because to me, they deserved to lose and Detroit needed the game to win. So last play of the game, it was hysterical, but 3-1. So I'm going to go back to 4 games again this week. I got at Tennessee -8.5 against Jacksonville. I don't think Jacksonville is very good against the run. Their offense put up 197 total yards last week, Jacksonville. So I think this is a get healthy Tennessee victory. I like Seattle at Houston -7.5. Seattle had a very good win over the 49ers, albeit at home. Deebo Samuel did not play for the 49ers. That's a big deal this year. But I think now Russell Wilson was Russell Wilson. And I think I told you before the show, Houston announced that Davis Mills is going to be the quarterback because the coach thinks he gives them the best chance to win, as opposed to Tyrod Taylor, who I think they have 2 wins.
Interesting, yeah.
He won them both. But Davis Mills' numbers have been terrible, and I think Seattle's going to get after him. I like New Orleans at the Jets 5.5 because I just found out that Alvin Kamara is coming back. And the Jets are not good against the run. And if Taysom Hill starts at quarterback again, no, he's not a good. I thought he could be an NFL quarterback, but maybe he just does too many other things where he can really focus. But if you have him running the rugby player and you have Kamara running and just coming out of the back for those short screens that he's great at, I think it's going to be a long day for the Jets defense. And finally, Monday night, I'm going with Arizona, even though they're at home. When do you say that? They were on the road. I'd love them.
Right.
But they're -2.5 against the Rams. I think the whole Rams, OBJ, Von Miller, even Matthew Stafford, who's kind of come back to the pack a little. I just think they're not as good. Will these be the 3 things that make them a Super Bowl winner, like Dan Orlovsky at least implied, Super Bowl or bust? I don't think so right now, Joe. Now you tell me, they got whatever they got, 4 or 5 more games. Maybe they will. But I don't think it's there yet. Matthew Stafford has not been the MVP candidate they thought he might be, with a much better defense to help him and weapons. I mean, you got Cooper Kupp. And so I like Arizona. You might tell me it's a little bit of a weird line because Arizona is only 2.5. But I think the Rams have been over-respected since they got Von Miller, and then more so when they got OBJ. Can either of them explode? Yeah. Can they do it week in and week out? I don't know. Why haven't the Rams, don't they have, lots of sacks or whatever? I mean, they won easily but before that, I think they lost 3 games in a row. So I'm going at Tennessee over Jacksonville, Seattle at Houston, New Orleans at the Jets, and Arizona at home, which is their weaker stance so far this year, -2.5 against the Rams, who, if they want to be in the mix, they need to win this game.
I agree. That's exactly why I have the Rams, believe it or not, against Arizona. It's just a gut feel. Last week, by the way, I was 2-1 at the Eagles. The Ravens, that was a disaster. And the Chargers was just kind of like, I don't know, getting 3 on the road. Maybe they'll play well. And they killed the Bengals. I don't know what's wrong with Cincinnati these days. This week, I have the Ravens again. It looks like what do you call it, Joe Staszak line? Like Cleveland's favored by 3 points. It looks weird. I should probably take Cleveland, but I'm going with the Ravens. I'll go with the 8-4 team. I think Cleveland's a mess. They're getting 3 points. And to be honest, I know people around here like to think Dallas no. Washington and Dallas is the rivalry in the NFC East. The Eagles and the Giants are the biggest rivalry.
Right.
Washington's been playing lights out. Dallas eked out a game against the Saints after losing a couple. they're 4.5 point favorite. I'll take the points and the hot team and the defensive team. I'll take Washington plus 4.5 in Dallas. And like I said, I'm going with the Rams. Just it's a gut feel. Anything under 3 points, it looks like, well, you could take the Cards and win by a field goal. I'm going Rams. I just have a gut feeling on that one. But again, all for entertainment purposes. If you look at my record, so that's talk a little college football. We talked about Lincoln Riley. Mario Cristobal goes to Miami, and the Heisman. I was never a big Heisman guy. I think to me it's a lot of political, pushing for this guy and campaigning for that guy. Bryce Jones, to me, again, anyone and you listened to me all year about how good Georgia was. They were one of those teams that clearly head and shoulders above everybody else. They're going to cover every week. They're going to kill Alabama. And that happened. And he throws 5 touchdowns and 43 on the year. I think you might bring up the number it is to bet on him to win the Heisman. Your thoughts on the Heisman finals? To me, it's no contest. No contest.
ESPN's trying to make it out to be a close contest.
Of course they are.
You can't. In the old days, you could kind of avoid if you didn't really care about point spreads and stuff like that. Now, because of the legalized gambling, in many states, they just bombard you. If it's not in commercials, it's actually on the show. And I did not see this on ESPN, not surprisingly, because they're trying to make it like CJ Stroud of Ohio State maybe could be, the third freshman all time after Winston and Manziel to win the Heisman, the first true freshman, the third all time. But Bryce Young, especially after the beatdown they put on Alabama against Georgia. I mean, that was
unbelievable.
Bryce Young you have to lay 4,000 to win 100. So how's he losing the Heisman? The question is, he's not. Give Hutchinson credit, the defensive lineman from Michigan, for a defensive guy to make it. And maybe the most interesting guy who, to me, has no chance to win is Ken Pickett. He did set the all-time Pitt passing yards, 4,319 in a season. He did pay homage to Larry Fitzgerald, the last guy from Pitt to be considered for the Heisman. But his claim to fame now, and we talked about it before the show, is he did that fake slide last week. And the guy 7 yards in front of him slowed down. He ran right by him and scored a touchdown. And he got incredible grief. He said it was spur of the moment. He said he didn't mean to do it, which I think is probably true. I don't think anybody's ever done it before. But the NCAA in 1 week, and they're calling it the Pickett rule. In 1 week, now if you fake a slide, the ball goes right where you started to fake. So you can't fake a slide anymore. If you're going to slide, you got to slide. And everybody remembers the Dan Marino fake spike against the Jets, where they won the game with a touchdown pass. But that's probably right that they do that, because you're protecting the quarterback, and he shouldn't be able to use a fake like that to then go on and score. And that that play, scored a touchdown. It was like a 50-yard touchdown run. So I think that's good. But again, they're just trying to make this into something. This is not something you're going to turn on your TV with bated breath. It might be Bryce Young or fill in the blank, because it won't be. It's nice that those guys get a free trip to New York and all that stuff. But I don't know if you want to be in New York now. They have an incredible higher percentage of COVID cases. We've kind of dropped our guard in New York, I think. And you just, it keeps coming and coming and coming. You just wish everybody would wear a mask all the time. But, I don't want to go off on that tangent, but this has been much longer than we thought it would be. And, I think I saw one thing that said, by January, you're going to have 875,000 deaths in America. 1,000, 1,100 people die every bit. And most of the country yawns. It's really incredible, but that's for another time.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer.
If I could say Army Navy today, everybody should watch the Army Navy game. I understand it's not top 10 teams. You should show some respect for the military. This is the one day, as I saw a guy early on ESPN say, we love our brothers in the Navy, except for 5 hours, the next 5 hours. That's great stuff. But you should at least, I don't know, turn on the game or just think about the military, because where would we be without them going way, way, way back?
All right, I totally agree, and I do like the game. I liked it when it was in Philly.
Yeah.
I do like the game wherever it is. It's cool. It's a spectacle. It's a good spectacle. It makes you feel very tied into your country and all the great things that the military folks do for us, common folk. I wanted to finish up with a little baseball. The Veterans Committee elected, I believe, 6 new players to the Hall of Fame. One of them, Gil Hodges from the Brooklyn Dodgers. By any measure, one of the best players of his era. What are your thoughts? Is it a long time coming?
It's been a long time coming. I actually found, if I can actually find it, I'll even hold it up next week. In 2001, I was writing for the New York Post Sports Week, and Bill Mazeroski got in because of the Veterans Committee. And there were rumors that, the Veterans Committee over the years kind of put your buddies in.
Yeah.
There was a guy from the Pirates who was the head of the Veterans Committee, and he did whatever he had to do, and Mazeroski got in. And I don't know if Mazeroski was a Hall of Famer. I said to you and many that I think he got in because he hit that home run in the bottom of the 9th of Game 7 against the Yankees in 1960, where they still every year when they tore down Forbes Field, they kept the left field wall there, and everybody makes a pilgrimage. My son went out there once when he was in Cleveland, and everybody makes a pilgrimage to the wall on the anniversary of October, whatever it was, early October, when Mazeroski hit the home run. They replay the radio broadcast. I mean, it's great. It's great. But I think if he doesn't hit that home run, he's got no chance to he was a very, very good.
Agreed.
Okay. So I wrote it back then, and the last sentence, which again, if I find it, I'll put it up on screen next week. The last sentence was, I don't think Mazeroski is really a Hall of Famer, but he does get credit for winning a World Series. And he literally won Game 7 in a series they had no chance to win. But Casey Stengel didn't start Whitey Ford in Game 1, so he couldn't pitch 3 games. I think he threw shutouts in like Games 2 and 6 or something. But whatever, the Pirates won. But then I wrote, so how can Gil Hodges, just per one sentence, how could Gil Hodges, 370 homers, great fielder, not be in the Hall? He should be next. And that's 20 years ago. And believe me, they were calling for him 20 years before that. So I'm troubled because now everyone says, well, that character clause, and Gil was such a well-respected guy, and he was and they're like pinning that on him as to why he got in. And I'm like, no. The man hit 370 homers. He had 100 or more RBIs 7 seasons in a row. And what I researched today that I didn't know, I knew he won 3 Gold Gloves, but he only won 3 Gold Gloves, Joe, because they didn't start the Gold Glove Awards till 1957. He won 1957, 1958, 1959, and after that, his play because of injury, and then he wound up being on the Mets first team, in 62 when they lost like 120 games. But all those years after that, Bill White won every year for the Phillies, right? Bill White for the Phillies. Mm-hmm. But he won the last 3. So then I went back and looked, and he had like 10 great seasons before those 3. And I'm not saying he would have won 13, but I'm saying he would have won a bunch more. And I think I told you off air, my father was a diehard baseball guy. He watched from the late 20s till he passed away in the early 70s. And he told me multiple times the 2 greatest fielders he ever saw at first base were Lou Gehrig and Gil Hodges. And in my world, that counts for a lot because this guy knew more baseball than anybody I ever met. So I think it's long overdue. I'm sad that they're pinning it on the character clause because we're in the midst of still, will Clemens get in this year? Will Bonds get in this year? Sammy Sosa will never get in. McGuire will never get in. I think I could make a case for Bonds. As I told you, he had 3 MVPs before he ever took a steroid.
Yeah.
And if he had dropped dead the first day he took a steroid, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
He'd be in the Hall of Fame.
And then he went Ruthian. He's the only guy who ever went Ruthian, really. And Clemens, I don't know, I'd have to look. When he left the Red Sox, you have the exact date when Bonds started. You knew he was pissed off about 1998, McGuire and Sosa. He said, I'm better than all these guys. It's well documented in Game of Shadows. Get the paperback edition. It's even more well documented than the hard one. I think Clemens probably started, although it's not as clear, when he left Boston at the age of 30 and Dombrowski said he was washed up. Remember that? He goes up to Toronto. He wins 2 Cy Youngs the next 2 years. And then he's become Roger Clemens.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to look at his Boston. My son looked at him. He said he thinks Clemens is a Hall of Famer just on Boston. But you have a lot of guys, there's no character clause in football. And you know why?
Yeah, exactly.
Half the guys wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
The guys would not be even, yeah.
in baseball, it's not as bad, but we only had the character clause is really killing the steroids guys because they clearly cheated. And you can go, is A-Rod going to get in? I don't think so. He shouldn't, but he's so popular now. He's back on ESPN. Some guys land on their feet. Some guys get their heads kicked in. I don't know how that's going to go, but Clemens and Bond this year, which I believe is their final year.
Wow.
And I see a lot of guys routinely now voting for, he might get in. They might get in. They routinely vote for steroids. I personally put Bonds in a totally separate position he should be in, Clemens in a maybe separate position, and all these other guys, A-Rod, I don't even think Big Papi should get in, but he's going to get in. He failed the anonymous test. Remember, it wasn't supposed to come out, but he failed. But all those guys are big question marks to me. I don't think A-Rod should get in. He admitted 2001, 2002, 2003 with Texas because of he signed that contract. He said because of the pressure of the contract. He admitted 2009 in New York. And you telling me when he went from Texas, where there's like 2 reporters a game, to Yankee Stadium, 2004 with that huge contract that was eventually rewritten to make it even huger, that he didn't do anything from 2004 to 2008? I don't believe that for a second. He's already admitted to 4 full seasons. And I think he won 2 MVPs in those 4 seasons.
There's no reason to stop. There's no reason to stop.
Correct.
If it's making you a better player, why would like when Andy Pettitte said, "Yeah, I tried, I didn't like it." Why? What?
Well,
you didn't like your fastball going up 4 or 5 miles per
Andy
hour?
Pettitte's got a problem because he's such a religious guy and such a straight up guy. And he said he was doing it to like recuperate faster, and he was helping his dad who was sick. And I don't know if he's got the Clemens record to really get over the hump.
Right.
So where is he on the character clause?
Right.
Great guy, great.
I always liked
teammate.
Andy Pettitte. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he's a tough one. I think he's going to have problems because he did admit to using HGH twice while he was recovering. But I don't know if that makes it any better because that's how you got back faster, or at least that's the argument. I love Andy Pettitte.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if he's going to get in. I do want to make one correction from last week. I hate to make mistakes, but I did make one last week. I said that Max Scherzer's $43 million a year is more than 2 teams. And I said the Pirates and the Marlins. In fact, it's not the Marlins. I just assumed they had a below $43 million pair. I saw it. I just didn't remember. But I went back and looked, and it's the Pirates and who else? But the Orioles.
Orioles. Wow.
If it's not the Marlins. I think Tampa Bay is a little over because they paid a couple of guys. I'm going to guess it's in the 50s. But they're the most miraculous of these other teams, the Pirates and the Marlins and the Orioles. They're not competitive. I don't know how Tampa Bay does it. Their miracle work is down there. But they still haven't got to the promised land. And I think every year, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, like we talk about Jefferson, that draft pick ad nauseum, I think in Tampa Bay, they're talking about Blake Snell and Game 6 of the World Series. And there's no guarantee that he would have won, although that's the best game he ever pitched in his life. And there's no guarantee they would have won Game 7. But that might be, in retrospect, all these years, all these #1 draft picks, that might be the closest they ever get. Although they're good next year. They have a chance next year.
Amazing. Just amazing. Great stuff as usual, buddy. You can catch this podcast weekly on YouTube. Also check out Steve's Facebook forum page. Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas, also his videos at westchestercountypost.com. Also on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975. Good stuff, my friend. I'll be texting you this weekend. We'll continue to chat and have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
All right. Thanks, folks, for watching. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week.